Oh, not come today, you needed space.
They weren't coming back.
We ran Brandon off too. He's not gonna be here today either. So now's your chance. If you're only here for Brandon on Tuesdays, I can even close my eyes and y'all can go ahead and take off. Make up an excuse like you gotta use the restroom or get a cup of coffee or something, and then just don't come back. So, so tomorrow, special day, 39 years. Is that right? 39th anniversary. That's awesome. Good for you. 49. She said 39. Is it 49? That's even okay. 39 good years. Is that? No, I'm just kidding. Good for you guys. That's awesome.
Our first date was to go see the first Star Wars.
Is that right?
That was a good date.
I was gonna say.
Yes, I remember that.
That.
Were y'all? I mean, if that was the first date to go to see Star Wars, I mean, afterwards, did y'all just talk about like what did we just see? Was that or was it? Were you? What was your reaction?
Remember what they talked about?
I know. I'm saying, like, did you talk more about like dating each other or about the movie that you just saw, or both?
I think I said I want to go back and see it again. We did 5 times.
Is that right? Is that right?
We took her parents to see it, my parents to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. That's what I mean. I was a little kid, but I know, like, I mean, it's just this iconic thing that once it first came out and people, went and saw it for the first time, word of mouth, it just exploded, and then there was lines around the block to go see Star Wars.
And it was frustrating. You had to wait a long time to see the next one. I think it was like
It was 3 years later.
Yeah.
It was 3 years later.
it was like, whoa.
Saturday, is that right?
Yep.
They do.
Yeah, they didn't make them quite as fast as they do now. So, okay, but today is a very special day. I don't know if y'all realize this or not. Today is National Banana Split Day. So, in case you didn't know, you need to go celebrate accordingly before the day is over. So, I don't know if y'all are big fans of banana splits. I'm not a huge fan. Like, I like banana pudding and stuff like that. I'm just not a huge fan of bananas. I don't know why. It's not a texture thing. It's like, I don't mind banana flavored things, but I don't know. Just eating bananas has never been something that's really appealed to me. I like fruit. I'm just not crazy about bananas. I'll eat them. I'm just not crazy about them. So as far as banana splits go, I'd rather have like a brownie or a piece of cake or something at the bottom of that dish instead of a banana. But I get the appeal. I understand it. It's just never been. Yeah, I didn't even mean to do that, but yeah.
Up north, the banana split when you got it was 3 scoops of vanilla ice cream with a strawberry topping, a chocolate topping, and then
Either caramel or pineapple. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
that was. And here it's like chocolate, and it's
And
like
hot
Yeah.
fudge.
yeah, and that's
Sauce.
chocolate, yeah, and
Mhm.
that's not.
No,
Do
when I
what?
grew up, it was,
Chocolate bananas.
you had
You don't think so?
banana
So if there's ever a chocolate fountain, you're not sticking bananas in that?
strawberry ice cream, vanilla ice cream, chocolate
Yeah.
ice cream.
Well, that's what they do, and I don't like that.
You like all vanilla with the different kinds of toppings.
Well, I'm sorry.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
That's
that
what you
was
get for
that
being a
Well,
Yankee that moved in.
King.
I know. There's lots of things like that.
Yeah. Well, most people. I'll give you some facts about banana splits. Most people, or not most people, a lot of people think that Walgreens invented the banana splits because it became like when Walgreens Pharmacy, early 1900s, all the pharmacies used to have the soda fountain. You had your prescription stuff on one side and soda fountain on the other. And so that was one of the things, and they called it their premier dessert. And so people were like, oh, the premier dessert at Walgreens. And so a lot of people think that Walgreens invented it, but they didn't. There's actually a guy named David Stickler in 1904. Now, he did work at a pharmacy, some town in Pennsylvania, Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
So he was a Yankee, so they did it right.
Yeah.
Apparently. Well, I don't know for sure if it was what he did with the ice cream. It doesn't describe it here, so I'll have to find out. But,
I think
maybe.
we had all 3 flavors.
We'll find out. That's right. But he invented that at the pharmacy, and then there was a college nearby, and the college students started coming and eating it, and then it just kind of spread like wildfire from there. So all these different pharmacies started making banana splits. So they had the 100th anniversary in 2004, and this has been recognized by the National Ice Cream Retailers Association, if you ever need to know that existed. But they have said this place in Pennsylvania is the birthplace of banana splits, because there's another city in Ohio who claims that they invented it, or their pharmacy invented it there, because there was a slump in the ice cream business, and so they added bananas to these, with the ice cream on top of it, and that. But the National Ice Cream Retailers Association says no, it's this place in Pennsylvania, for whatever that's worth. World record banana split set in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. I didn't write down the year, so I don't know what the year was. How long would you guess? World's longest banana split.
20 feet.
So much longer than that.
Oh my,
Longer than that.
oh, you're kidding?
I'm not kidding.
1.75 miles.
No, 4.5 miles.
Whoa.
4.5 miles. Yeah, 4.5 miles. It had 33,000 bananas, 150 gallons of chocolate sauce, 2,500 gallons of ice cream.
Now,
Yeah.
how did they do that? I want to.
There's this thing called the internet, and you can look it up, and I'm sure they'll have more of a description. But anyway, what would you guess how much banana splits cost when they first came on the scene, when they were first invented?
19 cents, 25 cents.
10 cents. 10 cents when they first started in 1904.
And they were big too.
Yeah, probably even bigger than what they are now, right? So I don't even know what it's probably like, what, $5 now, I would think. I don't know. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. I want to make this beeping thing stop out here in the lobby. So whoever's watching online, I'll be right back.
This is your chance, Lou. Get up there.
I really should.
You're always on time.
Yeah.
Always right.
You should just sit up there.
Sit up there.
That's my
No.
dessert.
Go take
They
Brandon's
are
chair.
cheap.
Can't find them anymore.
Well, DQ.
Yeah, but it's a little dinky thing. It's,
Brahms still makes. Oh, I bet they do.
I may have to try Brahms.
And I think they're decent size. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna finish Acts 9 and 10 today.
Only if you teach. We just finished Acts
Okay.
9 and 10.
you already?
Yeah. I told him today's the day to finish.
That's all my banana split.
I know. This is what I need. The cheat notes.
Yeah. You want to take a picture of it?
Maybe.
If y'all heard they're not going to make bananas any longer, you know why?
There's no appeal.
Been long enough already.
They're long enough. How fun. How
You
fun.
gotta ask you know why real quick.
Yeah.
They'll think about it.
That's right. Okay, we are in Acts chapter 9. We finished chapter 8 last week. Finished up with talking about the story with Philip with the Ethiopian eunuch, and that whole conversion experience. And one of the things that we've highlighted is this growing expansion, not just of converts to Christianity in general, but specifically how you kind of see more people who have been outside of Judaism that are now being accepted into the kingdom that hadn't had that chance before. And I think that's intentional on Luke's part. I mean, obviously, I think that's intentional on God's part. But I think Luke, as he's describing these stories, that's kind of one of the things that he's not necessarily mentioning, but as he's telling the story, you can't help but see how God is incrementally expanding the boundary, so to speak, of the kingdom. And here in chapter 10, it's going to get even bigger. We'll get to that when we get there. So we've had chapter 8 is full of these conversion stories, right? The Samaritans, Simon the sorcerer, now the Ethiopian eunuch. Before that, in chapter 6, we've had these the Gentile, the Greek-speaking Jews, the Hellenistic Jews. And so now here we are coming into chapter 9. We're going to have another conversion story. But this isn't people who have, well, I guess it is kind of somebody that has a Jewish background, but somebody who has probably more of a change in their lifestyle from giving their lives to Jesus than maybe any of the other conversion stories, at least that we read about in the book of Acts. Okay, so let's read through the first part of it. Acts chapter 9, starting in verse 1. Meanwhile, so while all these good things are happening in Samaria, all these people are being converted, meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. Now, real quick, where have we heard about Saul already? Okay, he held the coats while Stephen was being stoned to death. Okay, and then what happened after the stoning of Stephen? If we go back to chapter 8, I believe. So yeah, back in chapter 8 and verse 3, Luke says, but Saul began to destroy the church. Going from house to house, he dragged off men and women and put them in prison. Okay, so it's like we see Saul, maybe even, and we talked about this, maybe even being one of the people who brought Stephen before the Sanhedrin in the first place. We don't know that for sure, but could be. But definitely being there, giving his approval to the death of Stephen when Stephen is stoned to death, and then kind of taking the ball and running with it from there. So he doesn't just stop with the death of Stephen. He starts being the leader of grabbing these new Christians out of their homes in Jerusalem and throwing them in prison. Okay, which started kind of they refer to as the diaspora, the spreading of these Christians outside of Jerusalem, specifically to Samaria, which is why we had all these conversions in Samaria. Saul was kind of the reason for that, because he was threatening all the people in Jerusalem, right? So kind of a unintentional helping to spread the gospel by trying to destroy it. Okay, so then we have all this description in chapter 8 of the conversions in Samaria, and then Luke goes, now while all that was happening, that's awesome, here's hundreds of people, and here's Simon, and here's the Ethiopian eunuch, and Philip, and all those things. While that's happening, let's not forget about Saul over here. And Saul is over here doing what's the words that he uses there? Saul was still, mine says, breathing out murderous threats. Does anybody else have a different phrase there?
It's the same words, just in different orders. Breathing threats and murder.
Breathing threats and murder. Okay.
It says, the Living Bible translation says, uttering threats with every breath.
Uttering threats with every breath. Okay. So what does that tell you about Saul's zeal for destroying Christianity? Yeah, it's on his mind. It is all he talks about. It is all that he is focused on. Okay, and I apologize. I didn't look this up. What that Greek word there is for the murderous threats, but can you threaten murder if you're not capable of murder? I mean, I guess you can, but who's like, I'm going to kill you? Are you really going to kill him? I don't know, but. What has Saul already done? Killed an innocent man, right? Did he throw any of the rocks? Not necessarily, but he was involved in that whole process. Okay? He didn't try to stop it. And quite possibly, and when you read about Paul, when you read Paul's own words in some of his letters later on in the New Testament, talking about his past, there you get the indication it wasn't just people being thrown in prison. There's people being killed, and if he's not the one that's thrusting the sword or throwing the rock, he's at least getting them put in that position. Like he is an accomplice if he's not the one actually doing it. Does that make sense? So when Luke says, these are murderous threats, this is not just like, there's been threats to Christians already, right? Peter and John have been thrown in prison a couple of times already, and their threats were, don't do this anymore, don't talk about Jesus anymore, and they were beaten once, that we know of. But now things have shifted. It's not just threatening their safety, not just threatening throwing them in prison. lives are being threatened. And that is Saul's go-to. Like, he is hoping that these people who are turning away from what he has come to believe about who God is and how he works, and they're turning to this rebellious rabbi, Jesus, who is a blasphemer and was crucified because of it. And people are giving their allegiance to him and to his following. It flies all over Saul. He is furious about it. So much so that he's threatening people's lives because of it. Okay. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. So what's his plan now?
Gonna arrest them or capture them
Where at?
in Damascus.
Where is Damascus?
Syria.
It's in Syria. It's to the north. Okay, so this is part of why I got the map up here, right? So here's Jerusalem, where Paul is. Here's the area of Samaria where all the new converts were happening with Philip and all those guys. So Christianity has kind of spread out from Jerusalem and has had a big increase in converts here in Samaria. But Saul's not just going north to Samaria. Where does he want to go? All the way, and if you're watching online, you can't see how high my hand goes, but all the way up here to Damascus, okay? Which is about roughly 175 miles away from Jerusalem. This is a long distance. It's a hike for sure, okay? And you can't see it on this map, but there's Damascus is one of these places. I mean, it's an ancient city. You read about it in the Old Testament. It was around for thousands of years. But especially during this time, during the Roman Empire, there's multiple highways. The King's Highway comes around up this side here. There's another big road we talked about with Philip that kind of goes up the coast here, and then it cuts across. There's places that, a big road that comes down from across Turkey down to here. There's a big road that comes from Babylon, that area. Like, it is a hub of all these different intersections of different territories of people, different provinces and stuff. Why do you think Saul wants to go to Damascus?
There must have been a fairly large population of Christians there.
How would he know that?
Word of mouth.
I mean, I guess, right?
The Jews in Damascus were reporting it.
Yeah. And this is one of the things I want us to understand. Like, we read through these stories here in Acts, and it seems like one thing happens right after another, There's a little bit of time going here, okay? And as people have spread out from Jerusalem, remember the day of Pentecost when all this started, thousands of people were in Jerusalem because of Pentecost. That was one of the days that you had to come to Jerusalem and offer sacrifices and stuff. So some of those people went back home, this direction. Some people have scattered this way because of persecution. And what I want us to understand is Christianity has already, hasn't been necessarily a matter of weeks, but not a huge amount of time, that Christianity has already spread all the way through, Judea, Samaria, Galilee, all the areas that Jesus used to preach and perform miracles in. Now those folks are becoming Christians. And Saul is wanting to get all the way up here to this main hub, because if Christianity becomes a centerpiece there with all these different roadways, what's going to happen? It's going to spread all over the place. And all these Jews that might be coming from other places into Damascus, or leaving from there and going back home for, if they've been in town for business or whatever else, if they become Christians, what are they going to do? They're going to take it back home. So it's already creeped out of Jerusalem, right? At first, the Sanhedrin, the Jewish leaders, thought, we've got it contained here. And we got the disciples here. We'll arrest them. We killed Stephen. That'll take care of it. And none of that has worked. It's continued to produce more and more Christians. And now, as Saul has tried to stop Christianity by imprisoning people and by having people killed. Instead of it staying contained, what has happened? It has spread at least to Samaria, probably further. And so now Saul wants to get kind of on the other end of it. Let me go up there to Damascus, and if there are people who are practicing Christianity, I'll find them and I'll bring them back down here. Yes, sir.
And he wouldn't have really any authority in Samaria. The high priest giving him letters, because there's probably not a lot of Jewish settlements.
Well, there's still the tension there between
Right.
Jews and
They don't like
Samaritans.
each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
he doesn't have any interest in going there.
They're already lost anyway.
Yeah, let them go ahead and
Yeah.
do the heresy.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, yeah, he's got to really bypass that to get up to
Yep.
where the action's at.
And if he can get up here to Damascus, not only can he send people back down to Jerusalem, he can kind of create a hub of control and persecution, even coming back down into Galilee and all this area here. So it's strategic. It's not just Paul. Saul didn't just look at a map and go, let's pick Damascus. Either word has already trickled back to Jerusalem, hey, there's Christians up here too, or maybe along with that, he's wanting to go and kind of head off the spread of this in the first place, if he can. Now, what did he go and ask for? Letters from the high priest, okay, who is the ultimate authority when it comes to Jewish, at least Jewish religious law. He wants letters of authority from him to go get people in a completely different province and bring them down to Jerusalem to stand trial. Does the high priest have the authority to do that?
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't they have had high priests in every area?
No, your high priest, you only have one high priest, and that was in Jerusalem where the temple
Or
was.
all of them?
Mm-hmm. Now you had rabbis all over the place, and you might have even priests, living at certain places. But Jerusalem was where the temple was, and that's where the high priest was. Good question.
I would think he would have authority.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because he's the only one really can forgive sins, right? I mean, when you bring your sacrifice to the temple, he's the guy.
Right.
So I would.
And he's the one that goes in once a year to offer, the
think
sacrifice
he
for the
would-
Day of
he
Atonement.
would be viewed as a religious authority in that situation
Mhm.
over a rabbi or anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he wants permission from him to start dragging Christians back.
For sure, I'm agreeing with you. I think people, especially in the Jewish faith, would have recognized the high priest as having the ultimate authority. Matter of fact, later on, we'll find this later on, when Paul himself is brought before the Sanhedrin, and the high priest says something critical towards him, and he says something critical back. And they're like, how dare you talk to the high priest like that? He's like, I didn't know that was a high priest. Sorry, my bad. So there's still even part of Paul, decades later, that is still like respecting the authority of the high priest. So, yeah, he would have that authority, at least with the Jewish people. Saul, he hasn't started going by Paul yet. Saul asked for these letters from the high priest, but where is he specifically going to go? Okay, this is the key thing, because ultimately, who is in control of all this area? Rome is, okay? So there's something that wouldn't be not completely legal within Roman law for somebody to go from this city and this province all the way up to this city and completely different province, grab people and bring them back here for trial. That there's still, it's not exactly like our system of democracy nowadays, but it was still, even under Roman law, you would have to go through a whole process for that to be allowed, or at least the governor, the nobles or the government officials in those areas would have to collaborate and say, yeah, this is okay. So Saul is not just randomly going to Damascus. He's going to Damascus, but specifically to the synagogues. He's going to go to the places where teaching happens within the Jewish culture. And if anybody in those synagogues speaks up and starts talking about, when we read through Isaiah while we're at synagogue and somebody starts saying, oh, this guy in Isaiah, they didn't call it Isaiah 53, but hey, we've heard about him. That's Jesus of Nazareth. That's the Messiah. As soon as that happens, he's going to jump on it. And if he's in the synagogue, grabbing a hold of people for religious reasons and bringing them back here, Rome's really not going to care. As long as we're not starting riots, as long as everybody's paying their taxes and kind of getting along, at least with the Roman officials, fine. Take whoever you want out of your religious institution and bring them to another religious institution. That's okay. And even if people start complaining to the governor or the king or whatever official in this area, this also goes to show you how convinced that Saul is that he's in the right and how zealous he is for doing this, that he might even get in trouble for grabbing these people and bringing them back to Jerusalem, and he doesn't care. All he wants is letters from the high priest, not to give to a governor, but to bring to the synagogue. And whoever the synagogue ruler is or the rabbi there, they're like, why are you grabbing these people? And he can say, high priest told me I could. And they're not going to fight that. Okay? So it's a very conniving is not the right word. I mean, Saul has really thought this through. And there's a method to the madness. This isn't just flying off the handle in rage, and I'm going to go grab some people. There's strategy to this, okay? Now, he's somewhere on the road to Damascus. I know I've taken a long time just to get to the first two verses, but I kind of want to set that background for us, okay? Because I know for a lot of us, the rest of the story is kind of familiar, which is good. It's a really cool story. Begin verse 3, as he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting, he replied. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. The men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They heard the sound, but didn't see anyone. And Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by hand into Damascus, and for 3 days he was blind and did not eat or drink anything. So what happens to Saul while he's on the road? Yeah. Now he's got some kind of an entourage with him. We don't know how many people it is. He's probably got some fellow, Pharisees with him, but he's probably also got some soldiers, because what's he going to do? Grab people, imprison them, or at least shackle them, and bring them back to Jerusalem, right? So there's probably some soldiers and stuff with him.
He had what is known as Jesus.
Well, Jesus came to him. He didn't come to Jesus. Jesus came to him. And, he has this bright light shine around him. He hears this voice. They ask him what question? No, what did the voice ask him? Why are you persecuting who?
Me.
Well, that's interesting. Who has Saul been persecuting? Okay, but to this point, he's been arresting people, having people killed. What does the Lord say to him? When you're doing that, who are you doing that to? You're persecuting me. Matter of fact, when he says, who are you? The answer is, I'm Jesus, whom you are what? Persecuting. So I think that's significant. I think, the principle kind of applies to, Jesus' story in Matthew 25, when he says, on the day of judgment, we're going to have people divided into, one side or the other. And God's going to talk to the people who saw people who were hungry and thirsty and in prison and sick and did something for them. And they're going to say, we didn't see you in any of those situations. And what is his response going to be? If you did it for even the least of these, my brothers, you did it for me. Same principle here. If you are persecuting Christians, you are persecuting Jesus. He takes it personally. He feels it when we go through when we go through struggles, when we go through hardships, he feels that too. Okay. Now going back to what you said, Phyllis, what's Saul's response when he hears this voice talk to him? What's his first question? Who are you, Lord?
But if he recognizes him as Lord, as Yahweh, why does he ask who are you?
That's my question.
But
Go ahead.
I think he recognized him as Yahweh because Scripture doesn't have that on all caps. I think he's recognizing him as someone who has authority.
Right.
And that's what you would call the Lord, right?
Yeah.
If I use that term, someone in authority. But
Yeah.
I don't know if he knows exactly who it is yet.
Yeah, I think this is one of those instances, this is me personally, I think one of those instances where our English Bibles trip us up a little bit and put a capital L there. He doesn't know he's talking to the Lord. There's a bright light, he hears a voice. He can't see where the voice is coming from, but he recognizes maybe the tone of sound of the voice itself, or that is the source of this light, whatever it is. He is now inferior to whoever this is that's doing the talking and making this light be there. It would be, so in the Greek language, you have the word for Lord is Kyrie or Kyrios, and it can mean Lord, like calling God Lord, but it can also mean just sir. It can mean I am recognizing someone, a lord of the land, like I'm recognizing someone in authority. So this is definitely submission on Saul's part, even if he doesn't know this is Jesus, because he's asking, who are you? But it's almost like he's asking, who are you, sir? Who are you? You know what I'm saying? It's a recognition of somebody else's authority over him, even though he doesn't know exactly who that is. Jesus says, I'm Jesus whom you are persecuting. And then there's a, let's see, where's it at? I'm Jesus who you're persecuting. I'm sorry. Now get up and go into the city and do what I tell you to do. You're going to be told what to do when you go into the city. And then the light goes away. It goes away. Yeah. And so the people that are with him are standing there shocked because they heard something, but they didn't see anybody. But now, not only is Saul completely dumbfounded by this experience, but what else is wrong? He's blind, okay? He can't see. He has to be led by the hand into the city of Damascus and waits for 3 days. What do you think those 3 days were like for him?
Soul searching.
Yeah,
Soul searching? Yeah?
A little bit of panic.
Maybe. If you have been imprisoning and killing people because of Jesus, and then Jesus comes and talks to you and strikes you blind and says, go wait in the city and find out what's going to happen, don't you think there'd be a little bit of panic? Yeah, for sure. What if these people that I came to arrest hear that I'm in town and that I am completely vulnerable because I can't see? And we don't know if the rest of this entourage stuck around with him. Maybe they did. We don't know for sure. So he has gone from ultimate authority and feeling really, really powerful and feeling like really good about himself, to being completely humbled, scared, confused, and I think doing some soul searching too, for sure. Go ahead.
Imagine, I'm trying to put myself in this position. You're convinced with every fiber of your being what you're doing is right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now you're questioning that. Like, have everything I believed in been completely wrong?
Right.
I mean, it'd be even beyond soul searching. It would be wondering if, what have I done?
It's completely changing your worldview, completely changing your concept of right and wrong. Absolutely.
That's a high level of arrogance to believe that you have the right to kill people
Yes.
for what they believe.
Yeah.
And I think he had an arrogance reduction.
A significant one, for sure. And we know, because God says it in, I know we haven't read it yet, but in verse 11, he says, what in verse 11, what does he say Saul was doing for 3 days? Praying. I would be too, and my guess is there's some real honest prayers there. There's prayers of fear. God, I don't know what's going to happen next. There's prayers of remorse. I'm recognizing I've done wrong. There's fears of just not knowing what's going to happen next. I mean, like, I can kind of imagine the outpouring, the genuine, vulnerable outpouring of prayer that Paul went through for 3 days. Not eating, not drinking, just praying in darkness for 3 days. I mean, it had to have been part of his kind of his spiritual overhaul and his spiritual awakening, really. Okay?
I'm sitting here wondering, does he get more revelation during those 3 days of prayer? Or does he know enough about the way to understand what's going on?
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, as we read on, he's made a decision without anybody really kind of preaching to him or teaching him.
Yeah. Again in verse 12. So let's read. Hold that thought, Cliff. I'm going to come right back to it. Okay. So he's in Damascus. He's blind. He's not eating or drinking. So verse 10, in Damascus, there was a disciple named Ananias. So by the way, Christianity has gotten to Damascus. Okay. It's already there. The Lord called to him in a vision, Ananias. Yes, Lord, he answered. The Lord told him, verse 11, go to the house of Judas on Straight Street and ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul, for he is praying. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight. So, Saul is praying. I still believe praying in fear, praying in repentance, all those things. But God is also connecting with Saul. He's had a vision of somebody named Ananias is going to come and lay his hands on him. Now, we don't know if God has also said Ananias is going to come lay hands on you and then you're going to become a Christian. We don't know if it's gone that far or not. But he's at least waiting. Like, God has revealed to him, I'm going to restore your sight. You're going to get it back. There's a man named Ananias that's going to come and do this. But you're still waiting. You're still like, okay, when? Is it tomorrow? Is it later on today? Like, we don't get that indication. We just know the man's coming. So I still think it's such a humbling spot to be in for Saul. Especially, as you said a minute ago, the ultimate arrogance that he has been living his life with for the last however long, as he has gained authority and probably popularity within at least the Jewish religious leaders for the way that he's treating Christians, and now to be completely humbled, completely unable to fend for himself, and being told someone is going to come to you and restore your sight because you can't do that on your own. You are blind and can't get your sight back on your own. I'm going to take care of that for you. I mean, it's a very humbling position to be in, right? Okay, so Ananias says, all right, I'll head right over there. That's not true. All right. Verse 13, Lord, Ananias answered, I have heard many reports about this man and all the harm he has done to your saints in Jerusalem, and he has come here with authority from the chief priest to arrest all who call on your name. So what's Ananias saying? I don't want to go. No, thank you. Okay, so Saul is blind, and you need to go put your hands on him and restore his sight. Here, like, do y'all even realize, like, Ananias doesn't have a problem laying hands on restoring sight. So Ananias has some measure of the Spirit in him where he can perform miracles. That's not what's bothering him. He's not like, wow, I can restore sight. That's not the issue. What is the issue? Who he's having to restore the sight of. I don't want to do that for him. Why?
He's not a nice person.
Okay. Is he fearful? Is this kind of an eye for eye kind of thing? What do you think?
I don't think he believes that Saul is worthy of having his sight restored because he's not a nice person.
He's not worthy because what has he done? I mean, what does Ananias say?
He was persecuting.
He's trying to destroy the church, and he's come here to do the same thing that he's been doing in Jerusalem. He hasn't ever met Saul, but he's heard about him,
How
right?
did he know that he was coming with letters?
I guess word got out. I don't know. Somebody in Jerusalem maybe ran faster down the road to Damascus and said, hey, Saul's on his way, and here's what's going to happen. I don't know. Or while he's in town, I mean, he had this entourage. They may have said, hey, we got this guy Saul. He's got letters, but he's over in the house over here blind. So, who knows? Word got out.
I wonder how they did that before Facebook. Huh?
Yeah. They couldn't text each other or anything, man. I don't know.
This kind of reminds me of Moses.
How so?
Well, when God called Moses at
Oh,
the
yeah.
bush, you're like, hey,
Yeah.
man, can
No, thank
find
you.
Someone else.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I can't
exactly.
speak very well.
Exactly. Well, and we're getting ready. Next month, we're starting in our connection groups. We're starting a study of Jeremiah, and obviously we'll look at some of his prophecies, but we're really going to do more of a character study of Jeremiah. And you've probably heard Brandon and I talk about Jeremiah before, but Jeremiah had no intention of being a prophet. That was never on his radar. And God comes to him and says, I picked you out before you were born. You were going to be a prophet. And goes ahead and says, I need you to go preach these messages that I'm going to give to you. And Jeremiah's like, I'm too young. I'm too young. And God says, don't say you're too young. I'm going to give you what you need to say. And then tells him, these are going to be really hard things that people aren't going to want to hear. As a matter of fact, they're not going to listen. As a matter of fact, not only are they not going to listen, they're going to be really mean to you. Matter of fact, not only are they not going to listen, they're going to be really mean to you. It's not going to have any impact on them whatsoever. You're going to preach these messages, and they are not going to change. Now go preach. Who wants to sign up for that job, right? And you see Jeremiah throughout Jeremiah having these conversations with God, like, I don't want to do that. I mean, he even says, I tried to just shut my mouth and not say what God told me to say. Ananias is kind of the same way here. You mentioned Moses. I think of Jeremiah too. Go ahead, Jack.
In verse 16 it says, and I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake. So
Yeah,
God, like the Marines used to have a saying, we didn't promise you a rose garden.
right.
So God, he's not pulling any surprises. Okay, this is going to be tough.
Right.
But I'm going to be with you.
Right. Ananias is convinced, first of all, if I go and restore his sight, why did he come here? Why did he come here? I'm asking.
He's persecuting.
To arrest people, right? Well, I'm a Christian. As soon as he has his sight back, what's one possibility? Okay, now I got my sight back. Now I can arrest all these people. So there's that. The other piece of it is, to what you were saying, Phyllis, he's been really awful to Christians. And while he is blind, he's not being awful anymore. And again, in the Jewish mindset, if bad things were happening to you, why was that? You deserved it. You were a bad person. You were sinning, which you can kind of get behind that with this story. Why did God strike Saul blind? Definitely get his attention, but the Jewish people would have thought, well, God's not, at least these Christians, God's not happy with him. Let's not give him his sight back. He doesn't deserve his sight back. And will we argue with that? I mean, does he deserve to have his sight back and to have a really good life in comparison to what he's done to all these people? No, he doesn't deserve it. What is one of the main themes of Paul's letters? Read through every single one of them. What does he talk about? Grace. Over and over and over and over and over again. We don't deserve what we get from God. And Paul is like, I'm one of the main ones. I don't deserve to receive the love and acceptance and all the blessings that I get from God. I don't deserve it. Ananias in this moment is like, right on. He doesn't deserve it. But God's response, going back to what Jack was saying, verse 15, the Lord said, Ananias, go. Like, there's no, like, very direct. Go. This man is my chosen instrument to carry my name before the Gentiles and their kings and before the people of Israel. I will show him how much he must suffer for my name. So, who's been suffering for the name to this point? Christians, right? I mean, Peter, John, Stephen, all these. Yeah, well, James will eventually, get his head cut off. But these Christians have been suffering at the hands of whom? Some of them. Saul. Saul's been causing the suffering for the name. What does God say here? We're going to flip it. He's going to suffer for the name. I'm going to make that obvious to him. Okay? So God already had this plan in mind. God already knew what he was going to do with Saul. And he says, I've chosen him. He's my instrument. This is the one that I'm going to use. So, what can Ananias do? He has to go, right?
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Where he's on the road to Damascus.
Uh-huh.
back just a little bit. Is that where he refers to later on when he says that he too was an apostle who? Is that what he's talking about? Been with Jesus?
Yeah. Well, yes. Yes.
Because that's the only time it mentions him.
Of Jesus specifically talking to him. Yes. Yep. So this would be, and the other thing about apostle, remember we were selecting new apostles back in chapter 1 after Judas had died, and they had this criteria, someone who had been with Jesus, and so Saul/Paul fits under that same description because of this instance. Like, he has this one-on-one conversation with Jesus. And the other part about being an apostle, that Greek word means like someone who is sent out for a specific purpose. God describes it here. I am going to send him specifically to the Gentiles. Which, by the way, that's the other piece of this. To this point in Saul's life, what has been his culture, his lifestyle, his everything about his identity is what? Being a Jew, being a top-notch Jew. He knows more about the law than anybody else. He is on the fast track to becoming one of these great rabbis. He has probably aspirations of being on the Sanhedrin one of these days. And he knows the law, and he knows what makes somebody a good Jewish person. And he can't stand Samaritans, definitely can't stand Gentiles. And they don't have any place in the kingdom of God because we are God's chosen people. And God takes what at that time was one of the most, if I can say it this way, one of the most Jewest of Jews. You understand what I mean by that? And if you read in the book of Philippians, Paul describes himself that way. It's like, I was a Jew among Jews. I was an Israelite. I was from the tribe of Benjamin. Like, his pride in his Jewish pedigree compared to almost no one else. And that's who God chose and said, I'm going to send him to the Gentiles. I'm going to send him to the ones who are the least accepted by the rest of the Jewish people. And it's how God works, right? The person that you would think, the last person you would think to do this job is the one that God says, that's my guy. That's who I'm going to use. It's pretty powerful. It's pretty amazing. Okay. So Ananias, he can't deny God anymore. Verse 17, Ananias went to the house, entered it, placed his hands on Saul. He said, Brother Saul, the Lord, Jesus, who appeared to you on the road as you were coming here, has sent me so that you may see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And immediately something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he could see again. And he got up and was baptized, and after taking some food, he regained his strength. So,
and the Bible doesn't mention anything else about Ananias after this.
Mm-mm.
But from this we know that he was a man of faith. humbly with God and with
Yeah.
obedience, something that we should all,
For sure.
do.
For sure. Even if he second guessed it, he still went and did it. Yeah, I know. It is a great example. God says, "Here's what I need you to go do. Now go." He went. And if you think about it, this is another. So we got this ultimate Jew who becomes the apostle to the Gentiles, right? This amazing preacher, one of the leaders of the church, right? But Ananias was the one that showed up and told them about Jesus. He's the one that took the blinders off, literally and figuratively, right? But we end up seeing more about Saul/Paul than we do Ananias. Okay? This isn't the first time we've seen something like this. Who's been the main leader of the church to this point? Peter. How did Peter find out about Jesus? Y'all remember? I mean, he met him personally, but how did you first meet him? His brother Andrew. His brother Andrew went and spent time with Jesus and then went and found Peter and said, "I think we might have found the Messiah." We see snapshots of Andrew throughout the Gospels. We see him mentioned during the feeding of 5,000 and a couple other times. But Andrew's not the one that becomes the big leader of the church. It's Peter. But if it hadn't been for Andrew, we wouldn't have Peter. If it hadn't been for Ananias, we wouldn't have Paul. And so, kind of, I'm piggybacking on the point you were making, Jack. Sometimes God's got big things planned, not even necessarily for us, but using us, maybe even in a behind-the-scenes way, to make something good happen. So don't doubt that even the smallest things that we do can make a huge impact. Even just the tiny acts of service and help and conversations with people about faith and about what God is doing or can do in their lives. We may never know the kind of impact that's going to make. Or we may never get, if I'll say it this way, we may never get credit for it, at least while we're here on this earth. Doesn't matter. It's something that God told Ananias to do. It's something that God moved Andrew to do. And even though they may not have gotten the same accolades as some of these other guys, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have some of these other leaders. Yes, sir.
So we had an administrator at GAC at school. He made the comment, he would state over and over again, never underestimate your spiritual influence.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we do that because we think, well, who am I?
Right.
You know, what can I do? Well, you see, like you've been saying, you have a lot of influence.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're touching.
Yeah.
And how that is affecting them. And you may never know.
Right.
You might sometimes get a glimpse and say, oh,
I got to be part of that. Yeah.
Or I was a part of that.
Yeah.
You may never know.
Right.
It's happening.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The
God
power
never puts people in our lives by accident.
Agreed.
He has a purpose when he puts people in our lives.
Yeah. But sometimes we're looking for what's the big thing that I can do? And sometimes it's the simple stuff that even in that moment we don't recognize how big of an impact that's going to make. I mean, you know, when Andrew got Peter, I don't think Andrew was like, I'm going to go get my brother and he's going to become the leader of this huge movement and thousands of people are going to give their lives to this Messiah because of my brother. He just went and found his brother. He's like, I think this might be the Messiah. Come see what you think. You know, sometimes that's all it takes. Come to church with me. Come hang out in class with me. Come be around some other people, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what God does with it. I felt like somebody over here was going to make a comment. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say that it's our job to plant the seed.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we plant the seed and we don't even realize we've done it.
That's right.
You know.
You're right.
So
Yep.
And God still appears to people too. I know a young man in Costa Rica who was very bitter because his father had abandoned he and his mother, and he was in a crack house doing drugs.
Huh?
And God appeared to him and says, "Follow me."
Yeah.
And he went out, became a minister, and now has a ministry to gotten hundreds of kids out of the drug gangs.
Mm-hmm.
Built refuges, for them to come and get away from the drugs and grow in Christ. And
Yeah.
preaches to them and takes them on, to do things and give them work, and all because God took the time to go down and speak to that guy in that
Right.
crack house in the
Right.
darkest of places.
Right. And who knew that was going to have, that he was going to have that kind of impact? God did.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I see Paul as a woman hater, so it's kind of hard.
I know. He's my wife's least favorite
Oh, my
apostle too.
But
So.
anyway, I think maybe it's part of his time too. All of this he was going through was giving him a chance to feel a little humility.
For sure.
Because he had been, like you said, he was the top of the top.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, very arrogant. And so I think this was also a lesson in humility too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, all of this is God. It's God looking down the road and going, I'm going to bring Gentiles into the kingdom. I mean, he said that hundreds of years before Jesus through Isaiah and other prophets, right? He already had in mind, I'm going to open up my kingdom to the entire world to have the possibility to be a part of. As a part of that plan, he sees Paul being his personal instrument to help make that happen. So he knew what he was doing. But Paul had to go through this experience of like I said, of being completely humbled and being completely destitute and powerless because of the life that he lived up to this point. I mean, the reason that God got a hold of him and struck him blind was because he was on this path of arrogance and power and selfishness and hatred, and God had to get a hold of him. And once he was humbled in that way, man, he spent the rest of his life. Now, we can like or dislike his teaching, but man, you can't. The rest of his life, he wanted nothing more than for people who didn't know Jesus to know Jesus. That's what he did for decades after that. And it makes me think. I know some people in this room, we're starting to get away from people knowing who it was, but there was a famous Church of Christ preacher by the name of Jimmy Allen. And back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, he was one of the most prolific Church of Christ speakers, well, maybe even beyond our denomination, but one of the big speakers, especially down in the South. Thousands of people gave their lives to Jesus and were baptized into Christ because of Jimmy Allen. But his speaking style, you either loved him or hated him. And I've found people in the churches on both sides of it. And he was very direct, and he was also kind of loud, just the way they spoke. And so some people, I mean, I loved it. My parents made me go to gospel meetings that Jimmy Allen was speaking at from the time I was like 8 years old. Like I went to a bunch of those, and I had him in class when I was at Hardy and stuff too.
He was a bit arrogant too.
Well, I mean, that was the perception, maybe rightfully so, at least in some ways. And that's what some people like really got rubbed the wrong way by him. They saw him as arrogant. They saw him as loud. They saw him as judgmental because he'd be really direct. This is what the Bible says, and you're not doing this, so you must be wrong. Now, he probably wouldn't word it that way, but that's how he came across.
He just came out and said, "You're going to hell."
He would. But man, once I was actually in some of his classes and had even just one-on-one conversations with him outside of class, you come to realize, like, he really sincerely was worried about people losing their souls. And you could question the tone or the tactics, but the heart was there. He was worried about people ending their lives lost and separated from Jesus. And he was passionate about it. And I see that in Paul. Like, you can read through some of his stuff and that just rubs me the wrong way. And I do think Paul struggled with, I think his feelings of arrogance would creep back Sometimes I think you kind of sense that in some of his writings, especially in 2 Corinthians. But ultimately, I think Paul kept returning back to this moment. I was a blind, lost sinner, and I was offered grace that I could do nothing about. I couldn't get my sight back. I couldn't get my life back. I was powerless, and God rescued me. And I think that just that was his motivating factor for the rest of his life. Love him or hate him, that became his passion. And I think when you read, I think he also struggled with guilt. I think for the rest of his life, it was always bothersome to him. I think he probably still saw the faces of the people I think he still saw Stephen's face. I think he saw the faces of the people that he threw in prison, because years later, when he's in prison, 30 years after this moment, he's writing to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 1, and he says, this is a trustworthy saying that we need to log on to. Jesus Christ came in this world to save sinners. And then what does Paul say next? Of which I'm the worst. I'm the worst sinner. Now, you want to come up with a list of how many sins we committed and see where Paul falls in that list. Was he the worst? I don't know. He felt like he was. And I think that guilt was something he continued to wrestle with. This is me. I'll ask him one day when I see him. But I think that's something that he struggled with. But he kept coming back to this. He kept coming back to this moment. I could do nothing about who I was and where I was, and Jesus Christ rescued me. Like, both of y'all get ready to say something. So.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking of all the other apostles, like why not one of them? But it's Paul's zeal.
Mm-hmm.
That if you turn that zeal, and you're going to set the world on fire.
Channel it the right direction. Yeah, absolutely.
And think about God's timing and all that. If he'd approached Saul 2 or 3 years earlier, I don't think it would be the same Saul.
Yeah.
It's almost like he allowed him to do what he did because of he's going to break him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you break a horse.
Yeah. He allowed him to be on the path that he was on.
Yes.
Until there was time to put him on a different one.
So God's timing is always perfect.
Yes.
We always want things sooner or later or whatever. We have what we think is the
Mm-hmm.
best timing, but our timing is awful.
Yeah.
God's timing's perfect.
Yeah.
When he approaches him at this time,
That's exactly when he needed to. Yep.
perfect time.
Yep. And this is again. We'll find out later. I think Paul was one of Luke's heroes. Luke ends up joining him, as we'll find out later on in Acts, on some of the things that he does. And so, for Luke to get this story, maybe Paul told it to him himself, maybe somebody else did, but I think this is one of those moments where the bulk of, at least half of the book is going to be about Paul and his travels. We're still not quite fully there yet, but Luke wants to go ahead and go, while the kingdom is spreading, while more and more people are being accepted, while these Samaritans who were hated by the Jews are now accepted in, let me give you another example. We've allowed Gentile or Greek-speaking and Greek culture Jews into the kingdom. We allow Samaritans in. Guess who else we let in? The guy that's trying to kill all the Christians. God made him a Christian. So it's still like the borders are expanding. The people we're willing to accept, that's expanding. And when we get to chapter 10, it's going to go even further. Yes, Phyllis, what were you going to say?
Ananias recognized that Saul was not a good person.
Uh-huh.
And once the Lord told him to go, and Saul is my chosen,
Mm-hmm.
then immediately Ananias addresses him as brother.
As a brother, yeah.
We have a hard time.
Yeah.
When someone has wronged me, or I know they are not a good person,
Yeah.
or they've hurt someone that I love,
Yeah.
and I can forgive them,
Uh-huh.
But I had a hard time getting it.
Yeah.
And I would have a hard time just immediately calling them brother
Right.
and laying my hands on them.
For sure.
Performing a miracle.
For sure.
I think it's just human nature
Absolutely.
to do that. So I really admire Ananias
For going ahead and doing this.
going ahead and doing it,
Uh-huh.
and calling him brother.
Yeah. We're in this together now. Yeah.
That what Saul was there to do, and I'm sure that Ananias had a lot of fear that once he can see, he's gonna take me away.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
It's a I'll lay my hands and run out the door. Yeah. I mean, definitely that fear was there, but to your point, I think this is why Jesus in his ministry, I mean, said, love your enemies. Not just don't retaliate, love them. Pray for them. And I'm like, well, I can pray for them. I can pray for God to do all sorts of stuff to my enemies. I can, and there, what was it, like 10 years ago, maybe longer, there was a country song that was like, I'll pray for you. Do y'all remember this at all? It was popular for about 6 months. This guy, his girl dumped him, and he's like, I'll pray for you. And the whole song is about him praying for all these awful things to happen to her. And that's kind of our mentality, right? Because they deserve it.
Yes.
They've done wrong.
We've already decided whether they're worthy of going to heaven or not.
We have. We've made that choice. And God is going, that's not up to you to decide. That's not your call. You are to love. You are to love. Now, can we set some boundaries? For sure. But we can still, we can almost go too far in that sometimes and use that as an excuse to not love. I mean, this is, to your point, for Ananias, not just to show up, but to call him brother. And you can make the argument he's calling him brother Jew, but I'm with you. I think he's like, no, we're in the kingdom together now. This is what God is wanting to happen. And he calls him brother Saul, and which was a huge leap for Ananias too. Absolutely. Anybody else? This is kind of a good stopping point for us.
Well, it says that he prayed for him and he was filled with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It didn't say there was any evidence by doing this or evidence doing that. He just knew he was filled with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. Pray for him, fill the Holy Spirit. He's baptized, and now he's on a new path. And we'll talk about this next week. Like, Saul wastes no time in completely flipping it. Like, he's there to destroy the church, and immediately he's there to not just promote the church. He's there to tell people about Jesus and to change their lives. Instead of destroying lives, he's going to try to save them. And he doesn't wait. He starts on that immediately. And starts to experience some of the same persecution that he inflicted on other people. But we'll talk about that next week. Okay. Thank you guys for the time today. Good comments. Good stuff.
Sorry,
No.
oh,
Okay.
Oh, I'm right.
Okay. Well, if you remember it, let me know.
When you were talking about Jimmy Allen,
Mhm.
the person that came to my mind was F.I. Stanley.
Yeah.
He was another one of those you either loved him or you
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
I loved him.
Yeah. I loved F.I. too. I didn't always agree with it, but I loved it.
I don't think I know who that by Stanley.